Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm joined by Jade Renaut, COO of Galian Solutions. Now, Galian sits in a fascinating spot in the construction ecosystem. They curate some of the world's most innovative construction and design brands and connect them to the Middle East's most ambitious projects. From private villas and high-end apartments to hotels, cultural spaces, and landmarks like the Louvre Abu Dhabi and Mandarin Oriental Jumeirah. Their team works across Paris and Dubai, helping architects, designers, and developers weave advanced materials, smart systems, and signature finishes into projects across the region. Jade, really great having you. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thanks to you, Lawrence, for the invitation, for hosting me today.
Absolute pleasure. I've positioned Galian to a certain degree, but there's no one better than yourself to provide us with a little bit more context around what it is that you do, areas of operations. Give us a little bit more context, please.
Well, Galian Solution is relatively new in terms of the name of it because we've just done a rebranding. We used to operate through Galian Gulf Consulting, and that was ultimately what I would say did not always happen to be great, because people used to think we're consultant locally when we're not. We are only suppliers of sustainable and innovative materials, which is here and why we have done with this rebranding. We always try to strive in the market into showcasing products that consultants, architects, developers, contractors have never seen before. Our idea is not to compete with Asian or other European products that everybody can source, because we always take into consideration that we are based in the UAE. So we are in the middle of Asia and Europe and other continents. And so there is a lot of suppliers available to come to the market. So this is where we can really, I would say, put ourselves to be different. And this is what works ultimately, because in iconic projects, architects and clients want to have iconic products. And this is what we try to deliver on a day-to-day basis.
Yes, thanks for that. And when you think about your role today, Jade, at Galian, what are the decisions that only you can make? The ones where you're able to sit at your desk and make that decision?
Well, I would say being a family business, there is also a very thin line towards what really comes directly to me and that I only have a voice for. That would ultimately be marketing and digitalization. Fun fact or fun story to tell is when I first joined the company and my father was signing some new manufacturers, he was always presenting me as, okay, the young lady here is my daughter and she will be doing the digitization of our company. And he said, there is no better way to sell this service to anyone in the market than a young person doing it. So anything that comes into new processes, new models, anything that goes with the online presence, that would be only under me. And that would be the only category in which I can say, this is my decision. And nobody can tell me wrong on that.
Yeah, it's a super interesting one working with family members, because oftentimes work goes home with you, as they say. How do you manage that balancing act?
I think at first, my understanding was very easy. I was like, my father is my father, and at work, he is my boss. So no matter what, hierarchy-wise, he's always going to be above me. So there is always a very strong line of respect to be put. And because at first we used to bring business back home, which the family was not super happy about because not everybody works with us, we decided that once we close the office doors, we go back to being father and daughter, and any rough discussions, good discussions, fun discussions have to wait until the next day, 8 a.m. And it's been working well. I mean, sometimes we will fight for maybe an hour, the last hours of work. We close the door and we go back and stuff like, oh, how was your day? And we act as if nothing happened. So it's just a habit to take. And I think it's a blessing, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have that conversation sooner rather than later, right? So that at least you're on the same page and you can, as you say, close the office door or close the laptop, and that's where the conversation stops.
Yeah.
So, Jade, you position Galian as a bridge between innovative global brands and visionary projects in the Middle East. On a day-to-day basis, what does being that bridge actually look like for you?
It's a lot of translation in terms of how do people, because we still work a lot with European brands, especially French brands. This is how we started, but there is a lot of translation in business. we don't do business the same way that in Europe that we do it locally. So it's a lot of process to put in place and tell our French manufacturers, for instance, that a quotation cannot be given in 2 weeks, because locally our competitors give it in maybe sometimes 2 hours or 2 days maximum. So in terms of that, it's a lot of pre-learning or pre-qualification that we have to do. And locally, it's also a lot of education, because a lot of great products globally are not always reaching the market. And if they are, they don't always go to the right people. And this is my role. My role is to really target the company who would be benefiting from these new products and translating how this product could be good, not on a global point of view or not from where the factory is point of view, from a very local point of view. Is it going to match the 2030 UAE vision? What about the 2040? How are we going to help for the carbon emission? How are we going to help for the sustainability side? Are we going to help to build faster? So many things that I would say makes a difference when you have a meeting and you have to, what we call educate people. I don't like saying educate, but I would say tell people about new products and how to really put the message out there for it to be understood correctly.
That makes complete sense. And if we continue with the narrative of being a bridge, when the bridge is working well or working perfectly, what is happening behind the scenes?
A lot of paper translations, because sometimes we work with a very new company who don't even have paper or who don't have documentation in English. So we have to translate all of that. We also have to ensure that, for example, they can respect lead times, they can go on with different customization, because we are very picky on that as well, is that we want to make sure that everyone we work with is okay with customization. We believe that every iconic project needs to have customization in it. It can't be just the raw material that you're going to bring. No, it needs to be something different, something that nobody has ever seen, even if the product exists. But it's a matter of how can you transform that product to be very elegant for that space. And that is a day-to-day work between us, the architect designer, but also us and the manufacturer. And I would say this is all of the work and discussions day to day going on knowing how can we be better and how can we keep innovating, not only as, I would say, a bridge between manufacturers and local actors, but also as of like, how can we be better as Galian Gulf? How can we answer to questions better? How can we listen better, etc.?
And on the flip side of that question, if that's what's happening behind the scenes when the bridge is working well, when the bridge feels a little bit wobbly, a little bit unstable, what is not happening?
I would say not happening would be sometimes some discussions that would be difficult to have. This would be more also because of the time difference. And this is, I would say, one of the cons of working with not local manufacturers, is that you always have to take into mind that when I have a demand that is very urgent and I can't wait 2 hours to give an answer, but let's say in France, it's still 4 a.m. in the morning. What do I do? This is a non-working site. And this is something that we try really to work on, especially now with the rebranding, to make sure that when we have such questions or such things not working, how can we still make sure it works? Because we don't want to keep changing manufacturers. This is not our vision. Being a family business, we want to work with partners and partnership for a very long term. So whenever we have a bump on the road, the idea is not to make it a wall, just to make the bump smaller, to just overcome it and do better next time, I would say. And that is a lot that happened with Mr. Medei and not myself, because he has obviously more experience than I do. So he handles this kind of non-working and how to make it work strategy discussions.
You operate in a region where projects seem to be getting bigger, they seem to be getting greener and far more complex. How has that changed the way that you think about opportunity versus risk?
I would say the opportunity comes really down to how can I explain to local actors or key actors better for my specification to be strong. Because yes, we do have giant product. We really do have more sustainable project as well. And everything is greater and greater, but the discussion always will come down to what is your price point. And this is something that is a challenge on a day-to-day basis, because we have to ensure that with everything growing so fast, we also have to keep the education at a good level to ensure that projects are going with the same way of the vision, but also us as suppliers, we are communicating the right message from the right moments. And identifying this right moment to pitch the product is the key to the success, to help to get in these iconic projects. Not sure if I answered that correctly. Maybe I went a bit sideways on this one.
No, that's a great answer, and it segues into my next question really nicely. So when a big opportunity comes across your desk, you've mentioned price points as being something that you scan for before you commit your team's energy into the project, and you commit to the project itself. Are there any other flags or signals that you look for to say this is right for us, or we'll pass? Thank you.
I would say it comes down also to when is the delivery and who is working on it. Ultimately, we've been in the business for 10 years. When it comes to priorities, I would say we have to prioritize time and efforts. We can't be everywhere. We don't have a team of 100 people. So we are always choosing to, for instance, if we have 2 projects, and one of these projects is consultant and clients we've already worked with, this project will ultimately be prioritized, because then we already have some intel about the company, how to work with them, what is the kind of process they have in place, and it's ultimately easier. Now, if we have 2 unknown companies, then it goes down to going to have a meeting with them both, understanding what is the vision of the project for them both, and then choosing which project's vision aligns the best with our products. And I would say this is the way we do it.
If I understand the business correctly, Jade, you're effectively running a 2-sided platform. On the one side, you've got brands that want exposure and traction, and then on the other side, you've got architects and developers that are looking for solutions. How do you keep both sides happy without stretching the team too thin?
That is a good question. I would say it's a lot of listening and understanding that there is sometimes you can stretch the line and other times you cannot. So it's knowing when to say yes and when to say no. I always say, I've grown up in the Middle East, in which it's a place in the world in which you tend to say yes more often than you tend to say no. Being in the business since 3 years, 100% now, and the family business, I'm learning more and more how to say no, because sometimes saying no not only saves the client a lot of time and energy, but it also saves me a lot of, I would say, wrong reputation that could be put on me. So listening is great, but understanding and giving the right answer is better. And the amount of time I've said no to things because I was like, I'm sorry, it's not doable. I'd love to be part. Yes, you have a great vision, but ultimately I can't compromise my quality because I still need to please both parties and I still need to understand the full picture. And this would never be with us compromising our quality of deliveries.
Yeah, it's a very sound principle to have. I mean, obviously the allure of more business is attractive to anyone, but being in a position as a company where you can start to say no to business because it doesn't check a certain number of internal boxes that are most important sort of key pillars to the business is a great place to be.
And I think it builds trust over time, because then people know that obviously we can be reached out whenever there is any difficulties or technical questions. We're always happy to help. But when we see that we cannot do it, we would rather say, I'm sorry, I need to step out, rather than staying and knowing what is the bigger problem that's going to come out. We had an issue like that happened last year in which we were specified for a project. Everything was going perfectly. Ultimately, the project came through and we could not deliver. We had 2 choices. We say, yes, we deliver, but we know that we can't, or we say no. And we try to, I would say, enhance the situation by just being truthful and explaining the situation very correctly and on a very honest manner to our clients. I think over time, this builds trust because you have to take your ego down to say, I'm sorry, I've worked on this, I've convinced you, but I can't do it. Of course, it's brought frustrations, but 6 months down the line, it comes through a stronger partnership with honest discussions going on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you with that sentiment that building trust is paramount, especially if you are wanting to build something for the long term. So Jade, when a let's say, for example, a new brand approaches you about the Middle East, wanting to expand into the Middle East, do you have some sort of a qualification process that you do internally before you say yes to them?
So this is not my role. This is Mr. Smedi, but we do have one role that is between him and me, and that makes a lot of people laugh. But ultimately, we do need to not only know that the product will be working, but we also need to have a human connection with people we work with. So if we can't make salt and pepper, as we saw, if we can't go and have dinner or lunch with the people, I'm sorry, we're not going to do business with you. It's a very silly, I would say, rule to have, but we want to make sure that every communication can be done easily. So that's the ultimate point in which if we don't feel like we can spend a lot of time around the table with the manufacturers we work with, then we're not going to be working with them. The other criteria, this is not under me, so I don't know much, but this is the one I know about, and I think it's a great rule to have.
Yeah, it makes complete sense. So if we shift our attention into something that I'm guessing falls under your remit as the chief operating officer, on the project side of things, are there particular opportunities that Galian really leans into? Projects that come up regularly that have a similar theme to them?
We do have one, I would say, one demand that comes on a yearly basis. And it was very surprising to me because it's a project that we have delivered a couple of years ago now. And it's a very small, it's a very small amount of remote to give. And at some point I was like, there is something going wrong because everything is working. We have no issue on that project. But still, demand is on a yearly basis at the same day, at the same month, every single year. So after 3 years of this happening, I took my phone and I called the client. And I was like, I'm very happy to have continued business. We're so happy to support you. And especially on this side of the business, which is recurrent. But why is this happening? What is it? Do you have an issue with the product itself? Or can I help you more? Is there something else I can do? They said, no, it's just that this is being taken away. So we don't have stock every time, which is what we have to restock. And this is for a hotel. And I didn't know this thing would happen. So this also strengthened relationship because then on the next order, we have also found a way of helping them to not have the thing taken away from them to avoid the next delivery, which made them very happy. Not sure if I answered that correctly.
Yeah, no, you certainly did. And Jade, if we switch our attention to client acquisition or brand acquisition, maybe is a better term. When you look at some of the most recent architects or developers or brands that have started working with Galian, is there a commonality to them? Is there a common origin story? How do these relationships usually begin?
Honestly, I would say when I look to, target new local clients, I'm always looking at either family business because I think it's a great point to have in common. We know the struggles of a family business and we know the in and out of it. And we know also the blessings coming on with it. So that is most of the time the point I'm personally looking for because I think it breaks the ice from the beginning. The other point is which is the amount of sustainable products used in projects. If there is a lot, then I know it could be a great connection to have. The third point would be what kind of projects are you working on? Is it something that is iconic? Is it governmental based? Is it big enough? A lot of I would say that goes with where are you going to be and with who are you going to work as well. Because ultimately I'm doing B2B, but they're doing B2C sort of because they're the link to the end clients. So I'm always looking at that as well to see, do we have a point in common in that too? And if these three criteria are rich, then for sure I know that it could be a great connection to have, and I should get a meeting as soon as possible with that company.
Would you say that most of your growth still comes through reputation and referral, or do you have some sort of deliberate outbound plays running in the background to unearth new conversations?
I would say for the past year, it has been a lot of work in the background, a lot of outreach that we had to do. Because we had a massive change in the business for the past years in which we were exclusive to one manufacturer and then opened our doors to more manufacturers. So this ultimately changed our reputation locally and we had to act accordingly to it, be seen for other regions than just the material that we used to supply. So still, I would say we're on a 60-40 point of view. 40 would be reputation based and 60 would be outreach. So we hope to change that percentage in 2026.
Change it to?
60% reputation, 40% outreach, hopefully.
Okay. And in terms of the outbound outreach, I'm always interested in understanding what channels or platforms are yielding the best results for you.
I would say LinkedIn. At first, I did a diploma I had a bachelor in marketing, and I was a marketing enthusiast. And I was like, yeah, we need to be on Instagram and do this and do this. But then when you actually get into business and you realize that Instagram is a great platform, in my opinion, for B2C basis. But for B2B, do we actually have time to connect on Instagram and look what is going on the market? Not really. So I pulled that off and I went back on LinkedIn. I think it's a great platform to really connect because everyone comes with one purpose, which is doing business. Other social media platforms is a mix of things. So for me, it's a lot of LinkedIn, a lot of WhatsApp reach as well, and a lot of calls. I think the best way to reach the people, if it's not social media, is just take your phone and call them. Try to have a first discussion with them.
The jury's certainly out about the value of, the meta platforms, for example.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a double-edged sword, however, because you still kind of feel like you need to have some sort of a presence, even though a very small percentage of business probably comes out of those platforms. But we certainly here at Aegance feel that there needs to be some presence, and it's this constant friction when we're talking about marketing strategies. Do we stay on the Facebooks and the Instagrams of the world?
Yeah. And, I actually believe I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago with a friend that does marketing too. And I was like, what do you think about Facebook? Because ultimately there is also the thing of age. I'm personally not using Facebook so much, but my parents are using it. So, and we were thinking about, do we think Facebook is not working because we don't ourselves go on Facebook? But if we actually look at numbers, Facebook is still such a good way to communicate with people. And a lot of people are still using it. So I would say it's a choice. Galian might be on Facebook in the next 6 months because of how good Facebook is. Who knows?
Well, it's certainly your comment there validates the decision that we've made. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So Jade, if we look internally now at some of the internal systems and tools that you're using, I'd imagine having many brands, many products, and many projects constantly in motion. How are you as a team keeping track of everything? What tools or systems are doing some of the heavy lifting for you internally, allowing you to keep your finger on the pulse of everything that's moving?
I love the question because it has been in our minds for the past 6 months. We ultimately know what doesn't work, which is what we were doing. In the sense of we were doing a lot of paper-based. And the issue with this paper-based is you don't have a day-to-day tracking. So sometimes, you're trying and you think that you're following a project properly, and then it doesn't work. So we went on to Google Sheets because we want to move on to your CRM during this year. But ultimately, it can be a direct shift from taking notes to directly going to a CRM. Currently working on Google Sheets, I think it's a great item to start on because ultimately the entire team can have access to it. It can be, direct updates. Is it yet to be the best tool to be used? I don't think so, because there is still so much follow-ups that we can't really do on Google Sheets. But it's still better than Excel because we've started actually with Excel. And that was very funny because everybody would just upgrade the Excel. And then you're like, which Excel I have to look at? Because nobody used the latest one, which is why the shift to Google came through. And I'm really looking forward to having a CRM. I personally love working with processes, and processes give clarity, and clarity gives more scalability to our business. And definitely this is what we're trying to really put on for this year, is more clarity using CRM and other new tools. And I think that would have a great impact. I'm hoping so.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think moving firstly from paper-based to digital, whether that's Excel or Google Sheets, is the the first big step for you. I think Google Sheets is the right step between Excel and Google. But then being able to utilize that data at some point down the line through a CRM, I think is going to prove hugely valuable for you. Are there any front runners from a CRM perspective that you are currently looking at?
I would say that's the issue, is that when you don't have a CRM and you're looking at all of the CRM available in the market, how do you know which one is good? Because maybe you would know how to answer that question. I'm always told, you can use it and then you can implement it and customize it. And I'm like, but do we have one CRM for the fit out or construction industry? Because that would help everybody to actually know which CRM to use based on your industry. As of now, when we're going to Google and, searching, what is the best CRM in the moment? I'm like, great, I know what's the best, but is it the best for me? And that's where I stand today. So,
yeah, I was just going to say it's a very good question, in particular, wanting to have something that's industry focused. A lot of the experience that I have with CRM are very much sales focused. So your sales forces, your closed CRMs of the world, but they are very much focused on providing insights for a sales team into pipeline. So yeah. I can't say that I have the right suggestion for you, unfortunately, but I'll keep my ears to the ground about something. Maybe there's an opportunity there to create something that's specific to your industry.
No, because when you think about it, each sales department will change based on the industry. My mother works in education. Ultimately, her sales is not like I have in construction. If it was done the same way, it would be very weird, because even our targets are very different. We don't target the same people. We don't speak to them the same way. It comes down to a similar foundation, but on a day-to-day usage, if I can say so, it's so different industry to industry.
So Jade, I know that you've just gone through a rebranding. So take this question with a pinch of salt. But when you look back at the journey with Galian so far, what are some of the lessons that you have learned in your period in the position?
I would say don't think twice when it comes to joining a family business, because it's super good and you're actually growing your family as well when you're doing so. So that it would be my first taken from Galian Gulf Consulting. And then in terms of more business-wise, be very careful of what name you put for your business and how you want to operate locally based, because one word can make a very big difference. For us, the consulting word sometimes brought difficulties to have certain meetings locally, because people thought we were consultant. No, we weren't. I mean, we're not consultants locally based, or not for construction, if I can answer that better. And also is in terms of colors, be careful of the colors you're choosing for your logos, because not every color goes well through time. And this was one of my first points when I joined Galian. And I told my father, this is not working. This green is a green of the 1950s, but we're not in 1950s anymore. It's a nice green, don't get me wrong, but it's not modern. It's not where we want to be. And the color of a logo can say a lot, in my opinion, towards where do you position your company. So the rebranding helped navigate into that, implement how we want to be seen, not only today, but for the next few years as well. We don't want to rebrand every 5 years or every 10 years. That's not the idea. So I would say this is the taken that I've taken on my side. And I would say one last one is don't be afraid to dive outside of the box. It's okay to go in an area that you have no idea of what's going to come next. And maybe that's where the page going to be clearer and nicer than you have expected.
Really good insights there. So if you look at Galian as a whole, what would you say is working really well within the company right now?
I would say communication. Weirdly, it's communication. We always ensure that every decision is really aligned with our values and where we are, but also where we want to be. So we ensure that communication is always perfect or near to be perfect, because nothing can be perfect. But we don't want to leave any areas in which we're going to discuss this later on, because it's a tough topic. Now, we will do it today with the most respect to people as possible, but we want to make sure that everything is well discussed and communicated.
And on the flip side of that question, what would you say is not working well within the company at the moment? Where are the constant frustrations or the constant frictions and bottlenecks?
Process. Process and going through, this change, because I would say it used to be so paper-based that now that we have to go and use the laptop and update everything on a day-to-day basis, if one person is not doing it, it impacts the rest. So it's a habit to take. It's a process to I would say to take as well, and to apply. And this is where we still have some work going on.
And when you look 3 to 5 years ahead into the future, what does the next chapter of Galian look like in your mind?
Oh, I like this question. I don't want to shot myself in the foot by saying it, but I would say going more into a contracting side. Supplying is great, consulting is great, but I do see a new opportunity in contracting as well. So I'm hoping to be able to be known as Galian Contracting in the next 5 years. I think that would be a very cool way to expand.
Yeah, super interesting. Well, Jade, if our listeners and followers want to connect with you and connect with the broader team at Galian, where would the best place be for them to do that?
LinkedIn is great, or by email. I think email would have a much faster response than my LinkedIn, which used to be opened once a week and then everybody gets an answer at once. So I would say email is great. You would be answered within 24 hours, hopefully.
Amazing. Well, Jade, thank you so much for taking the time to join the Aegance Offscript podcast today. It really has been an interesting conversation, diving into Galian Solutions, obviously talking about the more recent rebranding, but what's led up to that point and what your aspirations are for the future. So thank you so much.
Thanks to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, for the very straightforward discussion as well, and for the unscripted, because I think this makes a difference not only for us both, but also for the listeners. So thank you for having the podcast.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript podcast. If this conversation sparked something, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.